Hello everybody, welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which will see Deadpool and Wolverine just continue to demolish the box office, get the #1 spot easily, whereas right now projected, at least by Box Office Theory, to be making another $80.5 million. And yes, that's its second weekend number. This is a kind of number that we typically see from a lot of bigger releases in their opening weekend, but that's just the kind of juggernaut this rated R film has been. It's been kind of amazing to see, and I think that we can now absolutely speculate that this film will be probably far past $700 to $750 million by the end of this weekend worldwide, which essentially means what? That's right, this film is guaranteed to get to $1 billion and is probably looking at maybe 1.2 to 1.4 billion. And of course, it could be even higher than that. Sky's really the limit with where this film is currently tracking and how well this film ultimately is doing at this point. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Twisters, how this film is also continuing to hold on quite well. Again, still has a bit of a budget problem, unfortunately, but definitely doing better than expected. And then a new film in Trap from Warner Brothers. This is the new M. Night movie and not expected to do all that much. And we'll talk about that and also how terrible the marketing has been, because the trailer essentially gave away what I would assume is the big twist of the movie, is the big purpose of the film, and it's not really good to know that right off the bat, because I have no interest in seeing it now that I already know what the story is ultimately about. At least that's just where I stand with that. You also have a new Sony kids film, Harold and the Purple Crayon, coming out. Not doing all that much either, as we will continue to see Inside Out 2 and Despicable Me 4 dominate the kids family market. Before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, leave that fire button over, and honestly smash the rumble button as well. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Hit that bell. That way you get notified every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So again, Box Office Theory is indeed projecting $80.5 million, which would be around a 62% drop from week 1 to week 2. And this would be about a average, slightly above average drop for a Marvel film like this. Now, keep in mind, we're still tracking this movie. We're still, as of the recording of this video, waiting on the Wednesday numbers to be released. We'll go ahead and actually see if those numbers have been updated. One of the big problems that Deadpool ultimately has, and really the only problem that Deadpool Wolverine has as a movie, is that now that it is underneath the Disney umbrella, Disney is notorious for delaying their movie results, delaying the box office results for their films, even if it's a good thing. Right, so even if their numbers are looking really, really good, and especially if their numbers are looking really, really bad, they for some reason are not as quick to update their numbers. As you can see, we've got Neon reporting Longlegs numbers, Fly Me to the Moon, Bad Boys Ride or Die, Sound of Hope, but we're not really getting anything else from them. But it is important, as we have this up, to note that one of the reasons why right now the projections for this weekend for Deadpool is looking as good as it is because it has had an amazing run during the week. We already talked about this on our stream this past Wednesday. Sorry, the morning show yesterday. Man, I'm back in school mode now, and it's just already, my mind is already blown. But we talked about this the other day, how ultimately, because of how strong its Monday was, right? How small the drop-off between Sunday and Monday was, in the 50% range, right? 54%, I think, was the ultimate number there, that what we saw was a very, very strong performance. And I said at the time, do not be surprised if those Tuesday numbers come in higher than even that Monday number because of the discount sales. And sure enough, what do we see? It actually went up 4%. So it only dropped 54% from Sunday to Monday. It's already a very good hold for a rated R giant juggernaut film like this. We also now saw from Monday to Tuesday, it increased by 4%. These are the kinds of numbers that you want to see from a movie like this because it means that you got some forward-moving momentum. Now, we'll probably see a drop between the Tuesday and Wednesday numbers because you have those discount tickets no longer being available. Again, that's one of the benefits of the discount Tuesday ticket sales that you typically see. But I suspect that you'll probably still see those numbers in the double-digit range, potentially even still in the $20 million range. But of course, we have to wait for those numbers to actually get updated. Regardless of where those numbers fall, though, the movie is tracking so well that that's why they're projecting a 62% drop. And keep this in mind, this is coming from Box Office Theory. And so we actually could see we could see the hold be a lot stronger than what is being projected here. And so let's go ahead and look at some of the other projections. So going to Box Office Pro, for them, they have the range of being between $80 million and $100 million. And again, if this movie gets anywhere close to $100 million in its second weekend, that's going to blow a lot of people's minds. I mean, it's going to blow my mind. and it's going to blow a lot of people in the box office, covering Space's mind as well. It doesn't really matter, again, because the film has already made so much money that the film is set to easily break even / start making profit, even with that gigantic $200 million budget by the end of this weekend, if not even before then, as this film, again, marches towards getting somewhere between, I would imagine, $700 and $800 million by the end of this weekend. It could be even higher than that. And again, that's why I keep saying, really, sky's the limit on this movie because of how well it is ultimately performing. So $80 to $100 million, this film set to be the number one film at the box office quite easily. We go over to Deadline, going over to Tony, talking about how he has his estimates of, in sum, the weekend 2 of Deadpool Wolverine is set to be 84.5 million, will be part of what's expected to be a 3-frame winning streak. That's a 60% decline, which is right in the middle of the previous chapter's second weekend holds of 57% and 65%. However, this Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman movie remains in overdrive, so it wouldn't be alarming to see the movie land somewhere among the MCU's top second weekends, those being Endgame 59%, Infinity War 56%, Black Panther 45%, Avengers 50%, No Way Home 68%. Interesting that they threw that one in there because No Way Home actually had a very high second weekend drop, but because of its opening weekend being so massive, it didn't really matter all that much, and it had decent legs down the road. But again, Tony, always interesting in the choices that he makes. 84.5 million, though, is what's being projected in the domestic market, and that is, again, just a really, really good number, right? Let's keep these things in mind, but when it comes to this movie, and we like to do things in real time when we can here. So as we're waiting for those Wednesday numbers to come in, again, doubt that they'll come in while I'm recording this video. Going just to the Deadpool and Wolverine numbers total right now. Right now it's at $545 million. When the Wednesday numbers come in, it'll probably be closer to $560+ million at the global box office. Already at $261 million, $284 million in the international markets, and that means that with the projections being around 80 million and it making about 20 million a day still at this point, and maybe today and tomorrow you get 15 to 20 million in comparison, you're still talking about a movie that's going to fly past $300 million, probably get past $350 million domestic this weekend, and probably do something similar, if not more, internationally. And so that's the reason why when we're looking at these numbers and saying, okay, both numbers could get to right, $350+ million. That's why right now I think $700 to $800 million is where this film ultimately lands in its second weekend. What does that actually mean as far as the long-term range on this movie? Let's go over to my charting because we love charts here on OMB Reviews. And so let's say it gets that low-end number of $700 million, right? So let's go ahead and put that in there. If it hits $700 million, which right now seems like a bare minimum of what's going to hit, that would mean a minimum projection, meaning in the average run of most movies, most films fall somewhere between the range that I have here, this minimum and maximum projection. It would be a minimum then of $1 billion, a maximum of $1.4 billion. So you can see why this weekend and what the final number is for this weekend is going to tell us quite a bit. All right, so that's at the low end. Let's go to the high end of, let's say maybe it gets closer to $800 million. Okay, now we have an entirely different discussion because now it's $800 million being reported, which would be $1.1 billion to $1.6 billion in its total range. And because this film is already holding well in the day-to-days, is expected to have a strong second weekend hold, and really has no actual competition until maybe Alien Romulus, which won't be for another couple of weeks. Yeah, this movie has a good chance of being the number one film at the box office, even up against a film like an Alien Romulus, if it has the kind of hold that we are continuing to see as the week progresses. For anyone who is slightly curious, if we put this number instead at this middle ground of 750, you would still be talking about a minimum of well over $1 billion and a maximum of $1.5 billion. Now, I say maximum, and remember, these are just the average numbers, right? These are just on average where most films perform. They're absolutely what I call chart breakers. A great example of that is Inside Out 2. This film in its second weekend worldwide, globally, had a total of $724 million, and the projections, therefore, based on that historically, would be it's ending around $1 billion to $1.4 billion. Now, this movie, as we all know, has already crossed, now, of course, my chart is not updating. I'm sure it's because the numbers is down or something like that, or again on the back end side of things. But still, we know this movie is past $1.5 billion currently at the global box office, and it's pacing to potentially get upwards of $1.6 billion. So the movie, right, Inside Out 2, is already a chart breaker. it is not outside of the realm of possibility for something similar to happen with Deadpool Wolverine. And so that's why it's going to be interesting to see where this second weekend number holds, because is it going to come in actually above where Inside Out 2's second weekend was? I actually think there's a very good chance that that happens. Now, typically, you have these PG movies hold a lot better down the line because they're family films, and obviously those can have a long shelf life. It's not as common to see that with rated R movies, but this is also not your most common rated R movie, as has been very clear by the numbers that it's been receiving. It is also interesting to see how even Tony himself mentions that Deadpool Wolverine is going to best The Passion of the Christ as highest grossing US R-rated movie ever. Now, of course, I will always add that caveat that, well, that's without adjusting for inflation. And when it comes to the success of that movie, Passion of the Christ, back in 2004, okay, that's quite a lot of time to go by to compare numbers with, right? So meaning we'll actually be covering that. We'll talk about what the actual numbers are. We'll talk about when Deadpool Wolverine, and I think it has a good chance of doing this, will actually pass that film up. We'll actually, be able to accurately state that it has indeed passed the entire total, the actual, day-to-day, fair apples comparison between the two films. We'll get there at some point, I imagine, because that's just how well this movie's doing. So even though, again, I say, okay, please, Tony, at least adjust for inflation, at least, compare average ticket prices or things like that. But if you're going to just go ahead and put this out there for the sake of it, look, the movie's doing fantastic. I think it's been very clear that I'm a fan of this movie, thought it was very funny, thought also that it's doing very well at the box office. And again, objectively speaking, we know that to actually be the case, but I also always want to be realistic. I always want to be honest. I always want to tell the numbers as they are, not as I would have them. And that is the reason why it's important to bring those kinds of metrics up. So again, this is Deadpool Wolverine doing amazing numbers here. Now, as you've noticed, I've not talked about many of the other films because the other films really aren't going to be showing much. Going over the Box Office Pro, the opening weekend of Trap, 18 to 25 million. Again, M. Night gave us a trailer for a movie, or at least the studio gave us a trailer for the film that tells us everything about it, or at least seems to, okay? It's a film about they're hunting down a serial killer, and you find out who the serial killer is in the trailer. And it was that moment where I thought, man, that would have been a really cool thing to experience in the theater. Not knowing that going into the movie would have been amazing to have a more mysterious trailer. So that, to me, I think is going to probably push some people away. I know there's some people who still like to give M. Night some, a chance and think that he is on the rise. But I'm sorry, everything he's done since Split has just been either terrible or has just been not up to the standard that it really could be. Again, I go back to the film Glass, really wasn't as good as it should have been for the ending of the Unbreakable saga. It was also not anywhere close to how good Split was. Split really is the only film he has in the modern era we can go back to and say, man, that film was really solid and was really fantastic. Nothing else he has done much of anything. So $18 to $25 million, can't say I'm all that surprised by it. And also, depending on the budget, could be a pretty low number there. Also, Twister's expected to get the number 3 spot, so again, still hanging around quite a bit. And let's go ahead and see if we can actually get these numbers up there. And of course, probably won't be able to because the numbers is just being really stupid right now. Apparently, there must have been some kind of bot attack or something on the site because they've actually shut down the comparison portion of their site because it says that there's been excessive bot usage. I have no idea what that means or when it'll be back up. I imagine, though, that's probably what's going to be impacting these numbers here. But what I will say is that even though Twisters is right now still holding well, right? It's projected to have pretty strong holds going over to Box Office Theory, 36% hold from its now next performance, $22.3 million, getting close to $200 million domestic. And that's very impressive. I don't think anyone expected that out of this movie. The fact still remains, though, it costs roughly $200 million to make, right? Right now, the report is $155, and that's probably with tax credits coming out of OKC, right? Oklahoma City, from the state of Oklahoma. And I think that you're going to end up seeing, though, this movie only be able to make its money back post-theatrical, right? It's lucky coming from a studio like Universal because they are able to oftentimes, sell the streaming rights to their movies and to make extra cash because of that on the side. I would not be surprised to see if they actually do that for this movie. And so that means that ultimately the film's chances of making its money back, making some profits are actually pretty good, just maybe not theatrically. And the only thing really holding it back is just how much money they put into the movie, which still does not make quite much sense to me about why they would have spent that much money in that way. The other things to mention here, Deadpool movie 4, $10 million. Again, another strong hold. Inside Out 2, another strong hold as well. Right now we're seeing Despicable Me 4 crossing $30 million domestically by the end of this weekend. Inside Out 2 creeping closer to $650 million at the domestic box office. And so it'll be interesting to see. And then, as I mentioned with Harold and the Purple Crayon, only $5.6 million is what's being projected right now. And let's go ahead and see. Again, let's go ahead and check this in real time. I remember that story when I was a kid, not a story that I would have thought I would ever want to see adapted into a movie. And this poster doesn't really, boost a lot of confidence for me. The film cost $40 million to make. At least let's make sure that this is coming from a legitimate source, from Deadline. So again, take that for what it is. But $40 million to make a film, and you're projected to only make about $5 million in your domestic debut. Yeah, not looking good for that when you need to make 2.5 to 3 times your budget just to break even in the world today. And so, again, sad to see that this is indeed the case, but this also is one of those other examples of why we know the box office is not back, okay? Hollywood is not back. There are still flops that are out there at the box office, right? I think Trap and I think Harold and the Purple Crayon probably going to be 2 films that are going to be talked about as box office failures, or at least not living up to what the expectations could have been for them. While at the same time, of course, you've got films like Deadpool and Wolverine, which is going to be making hundreds of millions of dollars in net profit for Disney. Twisters, profitable, but by how much, it's really hard to say at this point because of how much money they spent on it. And then you have, of course, also films like Despicable Me 4 and Inside Out 2, which are also raking in the cash quite a bit as well, right? Despicable Me 4, of course, just doing very, very well in the long term. Let's go ahead and see if we can update the numbers one more time to see if these numbers are actually going to finally get updated or not. At the very least, I might be able to, as you can see, the numbers is taking a long time to load, and it's not my internet speed. It's, again, something going on with the back end, I imagine, of this website, and it's something I really hope that they fix as someone who likes to live on. Oh, look at that. We actually have an update here. So as I said, probably close to $20 million. 19.3 is pretty darn close. So yeah, this movie, $280 million domestically at this point in time. That is pretty darn good. So as, again, we have that number now. Sorry, I'm now getting distracted because of how slow the site is actually being, but that being said, Despicable Me 4 doing really well. Again, not getting to the $1 billion as I thought. Obviously, I must have guessed that one wrong. But hey, never say never. These films are still making money, still making around $10 million a weekend. Probably by next weekend, it'll be around $7 to $8 million because of the kinds of drops that it's seeing. So who knows? Never say never, but probably not at this point. Still doesn't matter to the fact that it only costs $100 million to make, and so it's breaking in lots of profits, not nearly as much, though, as Inside Out 2, which is set to be the biggest movie of 2024, with the only film that I think that has a good chance of beating it being Deadpool Wolverine. Before the opening weekend and before that Sunday to Monday drop-off, I would have said, yeah, you know what? I'm leaning towards Inside Out 2 because of how much money it's made so far, the fact that it is a kid's movie, the fact that we still don't have numbers from Japan, or at least because it's going to be released in Japan over the next couple of days. As you know, I think actually it's getting out there maybe either today or again in the course of the next couple of days, beginning of August is what we know about it. And so we obviously therefore have tens of millions of dollars that have not yet been accounted for. I don't think it's going to be much more than that, but still, it's going to add to its overall money that is still also continuing to rake in from other places. But now you've got this new monster with Deadpool Wolverine doing way above what anyone would have expected, right? Still actually in competition with even other PG-13 films in the same genre. And that's just really, really impressive. And so I would have to say right now, it's going to be a battle, I think, between the two. Again, could we see Inside Out 2 get 1.6, Deadpool get 1.4? Again, I could see that playing out in the long run. Could we see both around 1.6 and the separation be very small? Yeah, absolutely. Could we see Deadpool Wolverine just do some crazy numbers and just down the line do even better? That could happen too. We'll have to wait and see, and we'll cover it all here on OMB Reviews, your place for box office breakdown information and fun. Anyway, thank y'all very much for watching. Please make sure you let me know in the comment section below, where do you think Deadpool Wolverine's going to end? Do you think it's going to end at 1.2 billion, at 1.4, 1.6? Really, those seem to be the 3 likely end points based on the numbers that we have right now. And also, what are your thoughts about these other films? Do you have any interest in the film Trap or Harold the Purple Crayon? Let me know your thoughts in those comment section down below. Thank you all again for watching. If you like this video, smash that like button, light up the fire button, honestly, smash the button as well. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Share this video out there as well, as it helps out with the algorithm. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day. A blessed beginning of August. Still going to have the July shout-outs and update those shout-outs for new members on the various platforms if you are a member on the channel in the next couple of days. And have a wonderful day, a blessed day, and as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Patreon, Subscribestar, Locals, and YouTube members who are at the Chosen of Valhalla level. Starting off with my Patreon supporters, Father Luca Illich, Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel, which is Eagle Rider, and Miss Martin Muses, check out her YouTube channel by the same name. To my Subscribestar Chosen members, Matt317, check out his Twitch channel by the same name, and also the K-Man, check him out at xtheboundaries.co, and a shout out also to my one Chosen of Valhalla YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Thank you again for being so much of a huge supporter of the channel. And to every one of my Chosen members, if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, or if you want access to things like giveaways of Blu-rays, 4Ks, etc., and access to an exclusive podcast bonus material for members, check out the links in the video description below for all of those details. You guys are amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed month of the Sacred Heart, and as always, God bless.